Welcome to Inside CBN Now, where we talk about the policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria as it affects your everyday life. Whether you're a student, a business owner, or a Nigerian that is just curious about the state of the economy, we are here to explain the numbers and decisions in a clear way that simplifies understanding to the common Nigerian. And I'm Victor Akpan, your host to the program. And today we're talking about protecting the Naira. Yes, protecting the Naira. And I'm not alone in the studio. I'm being joined by a professional who is seasoned, Mr. Muktah, Mohammed. Good morning, sir. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. My pleasure being here today.
All right. So we're talking about protecting the Naira. Protecting the Naira. So how can the Naira be protected?
Maybe I have a different view in protecting the Naira. I think sometimes it's the value that you place in a thing that makes it, everybody want to protect it. Once the Naira has value, everybody want to protect it. You rarely see people spreading dollars anyhow, and if you want to spread dollars, they spread the lowest denomination. So if your Naira is very protective, then people will create value for it. You won't just see it. And anything that is of value is not easily seen anywhere. So for me, I think the best way to protect the Naira is to make sure the Naira has value. And in terms of value of the Naira, the value should be recognized globally. I mean, when you hold the Naira currency, you should be proud of it. And that will bring us to how do your Naira get value? It's based on what it's able to bring to your table in terms of what value does it bring into your table in terms of asset, in terms of whether you're talking about asset, whether you're talking about daily household items and everything. I think once we're able to establish that, then you see people have a lot of respect for the Naira. Because now what you see in the 80s and the 70s, I don't think you see the way you see Naira these days, the way we do see it those days. But because then it was of very, very value when you look at the exchange rate between the Naira and the dollar. So sometimes people will say, what is in the value of the Naira? That's why every Nigerian wants to hold the dollar rather than hold the Naira. They tell you if you're an investor, especially this generation, they call you and they are asking you questions of how can I invest in dollars? Nobody thinks to say, how can I invest in Naira? So that tells you that there's a lot of work to be done. I think to protect the Naira first, economic term is to make sure the Naira has more value.
All right, so I'm just curious. You just mentioned there was a time the Naira was more valuable than dollar. So what's making the Naira lose value, and how does that affect the common Nigerian?
Well, the Naira lose value, like I said, in terms of we're largely an import-driven economy. At that time, virtually everything we consume, we're able to produce here. We didn't have situation with power. We had powers. The roads were there. It was after independence. And I think because of then, the population was not like what it is today. So a lot of people had seen the Naira then as very valuable in terms of medium of exchange and in terms of service to goods and services. That's for me, that's what really happened those period that made it to have value. Because again, we're exporting a lot out of this country. We're not just exporting. At that time, the rush for oil was not there like that. We had the cocoa in the southwest. We have the granite pyramid in the north. We had those hop in production in Aba. And so a lot of things were definitely happening in the economy. So we're not an import-driven economy whereby whatever we wear now, whatever we use, we always import. And that even our cars we produce here. We have Pujo, that was the car that was being used, and it has a producing base here in Nigeria, and it was in Kaduna and other places. So it makes it more that's for me, that's the difference between then and now.
Okay, so the CBN as institution is supposed to help out in this matter. So what is the CBN doing in this regard to protect the Naira from being undervalued? And as to how a common Nigeria purchases goods and services on a daily basis?
I think that's what the Monetary Committee is trying to do, but again, they have their work cut out because of where they are coming from. You have to feel for this current CBN governor, because when he came in, the exchange rate was already on the high, and again, trying to stop it involved a lot of things. And one is about liquidity. And so at that time, there was no liquidity, and liquidity for Nigerian comes in different sources. We either get liquidity through sale of crude oil, and at that time, our crude oil was being challenged. We were not producing more than 800,000 barrels per day. You get liquidity of FX also through foreign direct investors. Foreign direct investors have practically not been coming since the time of Buhari. We were in an all-time low at that time. Then foreign portfolio investors definitely also weren't coming because they needed to create a two-way exchange system. We were removed from the Morgan Stanley Index Fund. So definitely a lot of that. Nigerians in the diaspora were challenged because of we're coming back from COVID. So there was not enough of liquidity. So the only way the government thought at that time to bring in liquidity was to borrow in terms, and then using the oil, the swap of giving them crude, paying back those dollars so that you can be able to stabilize the exchange rate. Basically, that's what we're trying to do. The non-oil sector have done well, but again, if you look at the value they bring to the table compared to, in terms of monetary term, in terms of value compared to the non-oil sector, you see if the non-oil sector is just doing 5% or 10% to the oil sector, you realize that the non-oil sector seems to bring in more value in terms of cash than the non-oil sector that is doing about 80-something%. So those are where the CBN was having a challenge. How can we attract more liquidity into the system? And unfortunately, they can't do it alone. They have to be the monitoring side, also have to do it their own. And the only way they could do it was to hike interest rates. Was you hike interest rate, that means your investment, return on investment was high for foreigners to come into Nigeria. But unfortunately, again, they now had a challenge. The exchanges was not stable. And again, nobody want to come into an unstable exchange rate. So we have that challenge. We saw the exchange rate move from 780 when they came into about 1,800. Then we saw it come down to 1,200. No investor want to come in when you begin to see those kind of volatility in the exchange rate. So it became a Herculean task for them. And then the parallel market and the official market is still there. They wanted to see how they can merge, and that's why the CBN themselves moved it from about, I think 930 was doing at that time. They hit it to about 1,400 just for the conversion. But like I said, that period is not the conversion that was the problem. Liquidity was a problem. And in spite of doing that, there was no liquidity, and we saw it move to 180. And who will really drive liquidity into the market? Liquidity was not a challenge in the official market space, but liquidity was a challenge in the retail sector of that of the exchange, of the FX market. And that retail sector is largely driven by SMEs, who control over 80% of informal businesses in Nigeria. And that sector was challenged because the main driver of liquidity in that system, in that sector, was the Bureau de Change. And at that time, the CBN have revoked the license. They were not selling dollars to the Bureau de Change. So when it was challenged, they had to go back and, give the Bureau de Change dollars, and then we stabilized. Then they came up again that they must recapitalize. So it was very chaotic. It was more or less trying to balance the exchange rate and so that you can have liquidity into the system. That was the challenge.
All right, so you did mention that the major cash flow now is from the non-oil sector. Now, to a large extent, CBN are trying to put money into the system to stabilize the dollar from getting over-exhibited from the naira. Now, is that sustainable in the long term? Because how much of this can be put into the system to stabilize the dollar compared to the value of the naira in the long term?
Well, we've done that before, so it shouldn't be a major challenge. But it has happened before. We could be able to do it, but it also depends on what we are trying to do and what we are trying to achieve. And so will they be able to stabilize? I think what they needed to do is to make sure that they have a product, especially for the Nigerian diaspora, so that they are also excited to come and take advantage of your market here, then bring in the FX. What I think they need to do is to create a conducive environment so that foreign direct investors will come in. Yeah, there are promises, a lot of promises during the week. We have Petrobras might be coming back to Nigeria. Morgan Stanley is trying to open a wholly financial banking, get a financial banking license here in Nigeria. Those are all positivity that can drive in FX. Those are foreign direct investor. Eurobond is still ongoing. We give them the high return in terms of Eurobonds. So the CBN have their work cut out to attract those liquidity in the system. But in doing that, also they also have to see how they can be a balance so that you don't keep on going into your reserve to supply liquidity into the market. So let the forces of production bring in liquidity into the market. That is when it's sustainable. But as it stands now, I think they are doing the best they can to make sure that the naira is stable.
All right, so away from what the CBN has done previously, we know they've done a whole lot. So what can be done more to manage the excessive hoarding of dollars in the system?
I think create a product whereby a lot of people want to invest in that product using the dollar. Remember that we did a domestic dollar bonds of recent. We saw how oversubscribed it was. So those are type of the things that the CBN can do so that some of these dollars that are sitting idle will find themselves into the market, and that will add up to liquidity in the system. I think that's what they need to do. Secondly, also, they can, but also think of how they can make the environment conducive to attract inflow into the economy, especially for Nigeria and the diaspora. Sometime in 2018 or thereabout, inflow from the Nigeria in the 2013, about 2013, the inflow from the Nigerian diaspora was even higher than what we earn in sale of crude oil. So we need to see what were we doing there right then. But again, you know the challenges of immigration now. So most of them might not be able to be sending funding like that. And in terms of the CBN also have partnered with the international money agents to make sure also they have liquidity in the system. And sometimes again, the CBN also have to look at a way of digitizing these processes so that easily there are apps that are developed. Will those apps be able to work with Nigeria? How can be the CBN partner? Because what we see now, some people just send funds to their bank account in the United States of America through an app that in turn give Naira here. How can we make sure we partner that those apps don't just function without the help of the CBN? And then the other one is let the CBN be the main driver of the exchange rate. So what we develop economy in the world, or even in developing economy in the world, you don't go to ask somebody what's the exchange rate today. You don't go to one other website. You go to the official government website of CBN. So CBN must begin to drive that process so that there will be transparency. And that's why I like what they're trying to do also in recapitalizing the Bureau de Change so that they can begin to monitor the Bureau de Change just like what they do to the normal conventional banking.
All right. So you did mention foreign remittances, into the system. I'm just curious. At this point now, Nigeria is in a productive country, as such as it were or it used to be previously. So, how much faith do investors, or how much faith do people overseas have to be able to put in the money? Because we need the liquidity over here. How much is CBN doing, or how much are they to do more to enable people to have faith in the economy of Nigeria and then bring in the money to invest here?
Well, you can say they are not having faith. I mean, a lot of people are not bringing in the money because, again, when you look at the returns, that's all what the CBN can do. And that's the main reason why CBN keep hiking the rate so that they can attract investors to want to invest in Nigeria. If you look at the Eurobond, I think presently we have the higher coupon rate of about 8.7%, which is high compared to even Kenya was doing about 6% in terms of return of Eurobond. So those are what they need to do. Then they create a two-way exchange system, whereby if an investor comes into your economy, the investor is able to invest and also be able to exit. And that is very important for any investor that wants to come in. Not that, you remember the issue that we have with the airline companies, whereby a lot of them had their money trapped here, and then so you don't want such policy to continue like that. So definitely there's still a lot to be done by the CBN, but I think first and foremost they must do the right thing to attract those liquidity into the system.
All right, so undoubtedly we are running low on infrastructural development, and then we are also low on production, which is over dependence on foreign countries and all that. So are there things CBN are doing to checkmate that local companies or the system is in such a way that it can be able to enhance production in terms of what we have as resources over here through the people?
Unfortunately, that's not in the hand of CBN. It's monitoring policy. They are only interested in monitoring policy. That's the physical side, making your environment conducive for anybody to want to invest, for businesses to strive. It's in the hand of the physical side. And the CBN will not build infrastructure for you. You are the physical side. You are the one to build infrastructure. The CBN wanted to create that monetary policy too, and it depends on what you, the physical side, are able to do. And let me give an example. If the physical side have been able to remove tariff on some of the things that they wanted to remove tariff on, then the cost of those goods will come down, and that will definitely bring down inflation. If the physical side have made the environment so attractive for foreign investors to want to come into the economy, then the CBN really don't have much to do than to create. Now, how can the CBN help in the physical side? Once they know that you are creating that environment, you are creating that buffer, you are bringing down inflation, what the CBN will then do is to reduce interest rate. And by reducing interest rate, that means the cost of borrowing goes down. And that means local companies cannot easily borrow and for expansion. And once expansion comes, there's job creation. So it's something that the CBN can do. But again, they can't do it alone. They need the physical side when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to conducive way of doing business. It has to be dealt with by the CBN. Now, recently, I think the Ministry of Interior was talking about opening up a portal whereby investors can easily access Nigerian visa rather than before we created the visa on arrival, and it seems not to be working. So those are not in the hands of CBN. They are in the hands of the physical side. So the CBN on its own will concentrate on the monetary aspect. And why we are not seeing the kind of result we're supposed to see in the monetary aspect is just because the physical side, as it stands now, is not complementing fully the monetary policy side. The CBN government was talking about synergy between the physical side and the monitoring side. Now, the monitoring side is looking at reducing inflation by reducing liquidity in the system. The physical side is looking at taking care of the less vulnerable by doing conditional cash transfer. You can see there's a two variable tools everybody is trying to use. So there must be a synergy in terms of there must be a goal on how you want to build your economy.
All right, at this point, we're going to take you to the streets where we want to hear the opinions of Nigerians as respect of the Naira protection.
I haven't seen any, not in the past 2 years, not ever before, not even now. I think certain principles should be revisited. I don't think even the banks ever helping. Now, I feel more secure saving my money in Kolo, in my house, than giving it to the bank. Last time I used my own bank, should be like 2 years ago.
I'm not seeing any results at all because me going to the bank now, even transferring from my phone to other banks, the way they charge is so much. So at times, even going to the bank to take money from other bank, I will be like, what am I going there to do? It's not better I just do transfer. If I'm getting anything, let me just do transfer from my phone to the person I'm buying goods from. So that's what I do nowadays. Even transportation, if possible, I can just be doing transfer to the bus, but there's nothing I can do about this, rather than bringing out my cash to pay. But talking about CBN, I'm not sure they're doing anything about it, just to pop.
Nothing has changed. They've been trying to protect the Naira. The Naira is still struggling against the dollar and every other thing.
As in bringing it for our own value, my own convenience and all that. But for me, it's still not making any sense because when you protect the Naira from as we speak, now the dollar is still higher than Naira. And if we are protecting it, definitely it's either on the same level or higher than a dollar in my own country. I'm not talking about another person's country.
It does affect all of us now. My brother, then back probably last 2 years, you'll be thinking you want to acquire this. But a person who don't chop belly food, they acquire. Now, even to buy food 3 times in a day, it's a big problem. So a lot of things are affecting us. The fuel price, the increase in food price almost every day. So it's not just food, it's almost everything that is going wrong. I think it's only God that can help us now.
It affects a lot because I could remember last year, I'm into fashion, so I post online. So my phone was very, very faulty, the old one I was using. So I went to the market to price. The phone I bought as of then, 40,000, and now just 200 plus. I have no choice than to buy because I have to use it for my business.
The price of rice, everyday life, fuel, for example, when I started working, the money they gave me for transport fare, it would be enough and I could still do some other things for myself. And then maybe at the end of the day, my salary would just undo some other important things. But now, I've spent more than my salary on transportation. I've spent a lot of money trying to feed myself. Standing here is by the grace of God. Trust me, it's not by what I have in my pocket.
Sincerely, it does really affect my everyday activities, business and all that, because when I think about transportation to wherever it is I am going, because person has to fuel his or her car, it's a whole lot. Feeding, if you don't eat well, it's only when you have enough money you can buy that particular food you want to eat that will give you the energy to do the work. So definitely it's affecting a whole lot of things. And my phone, if I don't have a data, I can't do a whole lot of things, because if you look at it, we are in a digital economy now. Almost everything is done on your phone. And if you don't have data on your phone, there's no how that business can work well.
Why would they save dollar? And I actually believe that some people are responsible for this hardship. Some people are actually benefiting from this and are at the detriment of other people. May God help us.
Yes, exactly. But to them, it does not. But to we, the masses, it makes life harder to us. And which I know that is not friendly to the people of Nigeria, most especially the lower class.
I think it does make life harder, because if Naira is saturated, like properly used, it would really help the economy. It will help Naira gain strength. But so many people are doing everything in dollars now. Now, if we are exporting, we are using dollars. You know, I think there was a time CBN tried to use Naira as a means of exchange, especially for the refinery. It really helped for a bit, maybe for like 1 week, and then we are back to struggling.
No, it's not. You are not making life harder for me, because to me, I'm not spending dollar here in my country. It's not my major currency, so you are not making life any harder.
Because we have prioritized foreign products, foreign expertise. Anything foreign is what we prefer. We don't take ours, very importantly. We don't produce. And when we produce, we don't even promote these products for people to see the value or quality in them. Why would our Naira not be the value? That's what I think.
Actually, it's because of, let me say, fuel, the way they export goods to the other country. So that is, let me say, fuel is one challenge of what we are passing through in this country.
Oh my God, I think it's just that Nigeria, we do not produce anything. I just watched a video where they said that palm oil, we are importing palm oil. Why? I mean, those are stuff that my grandmother used to make back then. So what's going on? Everything, we are importing them. So
if you want to buy in whatever country you want to go and buy, you are buying in dollars, which is not helping us, because our government are not even making it easier for you and I, as a normal Nigerian citizen, to have access to it. If you want to go to Bureau de Change, now a normal aboki just around the corner, he will get his own percentage. His own percentage is now even better than you going to the bank to get it. So definitely, it's not a good one.
All right, welcome back. So you've heard from Nigerians, their opinions, and they agree. What's your take on this?
Well, funny opinion, and that's the street opinion, and which is trying to say how the average Nigerian think, or the masses think about that. The guy was talking, he says, that will bring me back to what I said initially, the value you create. He's talking about value there. He said before now, 2 years ago, he can think of getting the Naira to acquire asset, but now he's looking at, the Naira cannot even put food on his table. So that for me is the major challenge. In terms of fee, yes, again, you have to look at it this way. It takes infrastructure for you to do that seamless transfer from the comfort of your home. There's no part in the world that this thing comes free. Then I'm telling you, there's no part in the world that it comes free. You have some charges that you have to pay for that those equipment will be able to be maintained. I think it was in one of the programs that we talked about then, calling me to talk about the ATM charges of the ATM machine going high. Before then, people were not patronizing the ATM. There seems to be no cash in the ATM. The POS terminals became king. You could get cash there, couldn't get from the ATM. But once the fee was, the level in terms of if withdrawal level was improved upon, was increased, you see now any ATM you go, there's cash. So that tells you about maintenance of in the infrastructure. But sometimes CBN pay lip service to it, trying to impose fines, trying to threaten the banks, when they really know what the real issue is, that the real issue is what we are making from those transactions is not able to maintain our infrastructure. And I keep saying it that the way you can address that is what is done in developed economy, where you have shared infrastructure. All the bank comes in together, share the infrastructure, and by doing that, you are reducing the costs, and so that will help you drive down the transactional cost for your people, and people will definitely want to do the transfer. So there is always advantage and disadvantage of any policy, especially that removes, if you go digital, you have to pay for it. But again, if you walk to the bank, also you pay transport to the bank before you do this same. But again, if that works for you, it works for you. And so Nigerians are innovative people. What a lot of people have done now, instead of transferring money from bank A to bank B, they will ask you to open an account in their own bank, and they want to do this transaction. They'll ask you, oh, do you have account in this bank? That's what is going to help reduce costs. So whichever way, whatever way, any way you are in the world, there's always a way for innovation to reduce costs.
All right, so on a final note, what's your opinion on the overall discussion so far today?
I think my opinion is basically is a good thing that you're trying to get the CBN to know what really is happening to the people. It's also good to hear what the people feel about what the CBN is doing, which is what it means is that the people at the downtrodden people are not feeling the impact of what the CBN is doing. I think the CBN has to put a lot of work. The work should not just be in arresting people that spray money. That is good also, because again, that's Naira abuse. But again, they should make the Naira have value so that people will not just spray it anyhow. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done. The CBN also need to work on balancing the exchange rate. These copy and paste methods of orthodox exchange rate, we need to look at the peculiarity of our own economy and begin to see what works for us might not work in the UK or in the US. I keep saying it, at the time we had battling inflation, when the UK and the US were hiking rate, their inflation was about 12%. We started all together. Today, the inflation has come down to almost 2%, in some cases 3%. Rather, ours have gone up to about 20, even if the government is telling us 20-something%, you and I know that it's more than that. What we did was just using rebasing, but that rebasing in itself did not bring down the cost of goods and services. So we need to look inwardly. We need to look a local solution to our economic problem.
All right, thank you very much for being here with us, Mr. Muktah Mohammed. We really appreciate you for coming to the studio to have a time for us to be able to be enlightened, even as we move on from the Naira protection. Thank you for being part of the program today. Once again, my name is Victor Akpan. Until we meet next time.